Dramatic new surveillance video of a small-town Kansas police force raiding the newsroom of the Marion County Record. Now, the heart of a battle over the First Amendment. Officers reading a reporter her rights, snapping photographs, and taking away computers.
It's everything you've ever heard in the third world. It really is like we're living in Stalinist Russia or Nazi Germany or Vladimir Putin's Russia.
Police seized computers, cell phones, and other reporting materials from the Marion County Record newspaper's office and even raided the publisher's home in an unprecedented raid. This is not something that is supposed to happen. We're talking about journalists being targeted and raided. Eric Meyer, who is the owner and publisher of the newspaper, said that police were motivated by a confidential source who leaked sensitive documents to the newspaper. And the message was clear, according to him: mind your own business or we're going to step on you, he says. Now, the raid followed news stories about a restaurant owner who kicked reporters out of a meeting just last week. It was a meeting that was attended by US Representative Jake LaTurner. And there were also some revelations about the restaurant owner's lack of a driver's license and how she allegedly drove her vehicle with a suspended license as a result of that DUI. Now, that would have implications for her business because she is applying for a liquor license for her restaurant. More details on that in the next clip.
At issue, Meyer says, is a tip one of his reporters received about a local business owner accused of driving illegally. They decided not to publish the story.
We notified the police that they'd told us this. They never responded. The person who was the target of this then falsely accused us of illegally obtaining the information.
That prompted a search warrant, though federal laws protect journalists from search and seizures and instead require a subpoena. But the chief of the Marion Police Department says in a statement, there are exceptions, like, quote, when there is reason to believe the journalist is taking part in the underlying wrongdoing. The paper denies any wrongdoing and says it won't be deterred.
If they think I'm gonna give up because they've made it difficult for us to put out a newspaper for 1 week, they've got another thing coming.
I love his spirit. Okay, so we're gonna get back to the police in just a moment. The police defending what they've done. They claim that there's a loophole in the law that allows them to do what they did. There's another element to this story involving the police that I think is relevant, but just to reiterate the element having to do with that restaurant owner. Let's go to graphic 2 here. So a reporter with the Marion Record used a state website to verify the information provided by this anonymous source. But Meyer, the publisher and owner of the paper, suspected that the source was relaying information from Newell's husband, who had filed for divorce. So Meyer decided not to even publish a story about the information, and he alerted the police to the situation. We thought we were being set up, he said, okay? Police, though, notified the restaurant owner, Newell, who then complained at a city council meeting that the newspaper had illegally obtained and disseminated sensitive documents, which isn't true. Her public comments prompted the newspaper to set the record straight in a story published on Thursday. After that, the police conducted the raid, and Newell is a character herself, which we'll get to in just a moment. But there's one other thing that's really important to kind of suss out here, and I think that this needs to be investigated, because apparently the newspaper, according to Meyer, was examining Marion Police Chief Gideon Cody's past work with the Kansas City, Missouri police as well. Cody said Sunday that the raid was legal and tied to an investigation. So he's saying, no, the paper is reporting on me. Their investigation into me has nothing to do with this. It has to do with a completely different investigation, alluding to the whole thing with the restaurant owner, Newell.
Okay, let me be clear. I don't believe the police chief at all, not 1%. I think he's totally, utterly lying. And look, this raid didn't make any sense except for one part of it, right? They were in the restaurant reporting on not the owner, unless the owner is like somehow deeply connected to the police chief, they're not gonna do that even for a business owner, right? Especially if it's a small business, etc., right? So I'm like, there's something wrong in this story. And then I'm like, okay, look, there was a Republican politician in the restaurant and it was a fundraiser or something. So people can catch feelings over that and they feel like, oh, who cares, let's just steamroll the press. We do, Republicans do it all the time now and there won't be any consequences. But even then it's a little surprising. But then when I read the part about they were also doing an investigation on the police chief. I was like, ding, 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 we have a winner. Okay, they better preserve everything that was in those computers, okay? Because if there's anything missing, that police chief should not only be fired, but arrested for trying to get rid of evidence potentially about himself. So this is deeply illegal what they did. It's illegal in 3 different ways.
It's unconstitutional.
Yeah, it's unconstitutional and illegal. So I'll kick it back over to Anna and then I'll explain more why this is the biggest outrage in a long time in terms of freedom of the press.
There's so many angles to this story. So let's just quickly talk a little bit about the search warrant itself. So the police did present a search warrant, and that search warrant alleges identity theft and unlawful use of a computer, okay? So the 2-page search warrant signed by a local judge lists Newell, that's the restaurant owner, as the victim of alleged crimes by the newspaper. Now, when the paper asked for a copy of the probable cause affidavit required by law to issue a search warrant, the district court issued a signed statement saying no such affidavit was on file. So Cenk, what does that mean exactly?
Okay, so look, so here's 2 giant violations here. Normally for press organizations, because there's freedom of the press in the Constitution, you don't just get a normal warrant, you have to get a subpoena. So did they get a subpoena? No, they didn't even try to get a subpoena. No one's claiming they got a subpoena. So already it's out of the gate, totally unconstitutional, even if they got a legitimate warrant, because the press has a different standard. It's not arguable. It's an open and shut case, right? So now they go, well, at least I have a warrant. And then it turns out, no, they don't.
Right.
Okay, so now look, we'll see. This is the first day of the story. Was there an administrative screw up, et cetera? But if this story holds and they didn't even have a warrant, that's just going into somebody's house as a gang, breaking into their place. Remember, because it's their office they broke into and also the home, right? Where the 98-year-old co-owner.
We didn't even get to that.
I know,
yet.
Hold on, wait till you see what happened to her. Anyways, so they break into both, and if you don't have a warrant or a subpoena and you're doing this to the press, that is as illegal a search as you could possibly imagine in America.
So basically the police, by the way, this is a small town with a tiny police department of literally 5 deputies. All deputies engaged in the raid, and the raid took place both at the newspaper's office and also the publisher's home.
And I just want to say one more thing too before you go on, Anna. Guys, remember, this is over the allegation about a story they didn't publish.
Exactly,
okay?
Exactly.
And it was like minor. Somebody has a DUI and they were gonna apply for a permit and they were driving even though they had the DUI. These are minuscule stories.
It is inconceivable to me that police would agree to raiding a newspaper's office over that issue. It seems inconceivable to me. We could be proven wrong, but I do think that can the reporters please investigate the police angle to this, right? The paper investigating the police chief and whether that played a role, because there's been much to do about the Carrie Newell, the restaurant owner, right? Again, I just find it inconceivable that the police would agree to raiding a newspaper's office and the publisher's home over that issue, over a story that was never even published about the restaurant owner. By the way, so let's just talk really quickly about the raid that happened in the publisher's home. So as the raid was happening in the newspaper's offices, the publisher's home is also being raided. The publisher actually co-owns the newspaper with his mother, who was 98 years old when the raid happened. A day later, after the raid, something terrible happened to his mother because of the stress of the raid. So without giving too much away, let's go to the next video.
Eric Meyer co-owns the paper with his 98-year-old mother, whose home of 70 years, he says, was also raided Friday. He tells ABC News she died on Saturday, one day after the raid, saying she was too stressed to sleep or eat.
She spent 8 hours a week working for us, putting together a column of memories. How dare they take the last day of her life and make her filled with fear and anger.
So his mother passed away a day after the raid. He says she was totally fine, but the stress of the raid led to her death. I mean, just awful story all around. Carrie Newell, the restaurant owner, like popped off on Facebook over this and made it seem like, no, it's the press's fault. The press is like, a lot of enemy of the people type lingo. We can get to that in just a moment. But Cenk, thoughts on the raid in his home?
So look, first thing I thought is, look, 98-year-old dies after the thing, but was she on life support or something? No, turns out, according to all accounts, she was as good at health as a 98-year-old could be. And so, it's impossible to tell if this was the proximate cause of her death. But if I was the son, I was the family member, I would be livid over it. And I think you all would be too. And then I want to note that this Carrie Newell that's just crying and crying all over social media about like how she's the victim. First of all, she is admitted now to driving even though she's not allowed to drive. She said, well, I had to get to my restaurant where I'm applying for an alcohol permit I'm not allowed to apply for because I had to, because I want to make money and etc. She has not been arrested. So she has admitted to at least the crime of driving when she shouldn't be, but she's fine. She does Republican fundraisers or whatever she does at her restaurant and kicks out reporters. But meanwhile, the people who didn't even report on her but got information about her have been raided, all their stuff taken. God knows when they're gonna get it back. And this could destroy a business, right? And they do it willy-nilly. Meanwhile, Carrie Newell's acting like it's such a right-wing mentality. I'm the one who breaks the law. The government cheats on my behalf, but I'm the victim.
So let me give you her statement. So she's done a few interviews, but this is what she posted on her Facebook page. So Newell, writing Friday under a changed name on a personal Facebook account, said she foolishly, okay, so this is where she makes the admission, foolishly received a DUI in 2008 and knowingly operated a vehicle without a license out of necessity.
Out of necessity for what?
Yeah.
What, you think the other people, see, that's such a right-wing mentality. Like, no, other people should be arrested for that. Me, but I had to do it. Yeah, they all had to do it too, right? But so that's not how the law works.
And then she writes this, quote, journalists have become the dirty politicians of today, twisting narrative for bias agendas, full of muddied half-truths. We rarely get facts that aren't baited with misleading insinuations. But okay, Carrie, you're the bad guy in this story. You just admitted to driving on a suspended license because you had made the decision to get drunk and then get behind the wheel, and there are consequences to that. To like then deflect and blame journalists for her issues is ridiculous. She says the entire debacle was brought forth in an attempt to smear my name, but you just admitted to driving with a suspended license.
And they didn't print it, you're the one smearing your own name.
Yeah, she continues, jeopardize my licensing through the state alcoholic beverage control division, harm my business, seek retaliation, and for personal leverage in an ongoing domestic court battle, she claims. So that's the crying that you're referring to, Cenk. Listen, the real victims here are those who actually believe in freedom of the press and freedom of speech. Journalists should not be raided. Let's say that this story, if you take it at face value, the raid was over poor Carrie Newell, who didn't have a negative story printed about her, but got mad about it anyway.
By the way,
that is not a reason to raid journalists. That is insane, absolutely insane. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, look, and I want to be clear about this. It's not like they didn't print the story because their equipment got taken during the raid. No, they had chosen not to print the story, even though they were right earlier, because they weren't sure about the person who gave them the information.
They were concerned that the information was obtained improperly, and they did not want to print improperly obtained information. Like these people are genuine journalists. These are real journalists.
By the way, they have every right to print even improperly obtained information.
They do, that's true.
But they chose to be overly careful before knowing that any raid was gonna happen, that there was any police issue at all. They were as careful as they could possibly be, and I would argue like they should have printed the story, but didn't. But they raided him anyway.
Right.
And so the idea that the Newells and the police chiefs are the victims is laughable. Forget Newell, who cares? She's just a civilian, right? The question here is police versus the press. And the police have massively abused their authority. Guys, this is very important. If there aren't significant consequences to this, it'll be a green light. And then anytime, I mean, theoretically it could be left-wingers, but I haven't ever seen the left be powerful enough, strong enough, etc. And I wouldn't want it in any way, shape, or form do this, right? But for the right wing, you give them that green light, and they're gonna abuse the living hell out of it, and they're going to raid tons of press organizations.
Guys, for once in our lives, can we just not make a story like a partisan issue? This is not a partisan issue. Freedom of the press, freedom of speech needs to be protected, period. Without actual journalism, and that's what these people are, okay, we don't have a democracy. Actual factual information doesn't get to the public. So if you want to turn this into a partisan thing, like, oh, I don't know, are these lefty journalists or are these right-wing journalists? Who cares? Who cares? They're journalists who got raided by police for no reason at all, other than potentially hurt feelings by the police.
And it's not just hurt feelings. I mean, if they were going to expose something the police chief did, that would be a lot more than hurt feelings.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.